The Atlantic is suddenly popping off with tons of tropical activity as we are tracking two tropical systems. One has been named Tropical Storm Humberto per the National Hurricane Center. That happened earlier this afternoon. The other is what we call Invest 94L, basically a strong tropical wave. It's the lead wave in front of Humberto that could become Tropical Storm Imelda, the I name, here in the next few to several days or so, and there is a chance that it might not even develop. So here to discuss everything, first thing we'll go over is current conditions with these two systems. We'll go over the latest from the National Hurricane Center. We'll provide all of the latest model runs from this afternoon to this evening, and then we'll have a segment of the video. We'll kind of geek out with you guys a little bit and discuss steering currents and what could promote strengthening of these two storm systems. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling tonight. So let's make sure this is going to work. We'll start this off by taking a broad look at the entire Atlantic. I will mention you got Hurricane Gabrielle out here. Still a Category 2, 100 mile per hour hurricane, so still doing its thing out there. Still a strong storm system, but we're not tracking this anymore as this continues to race across the North Atlantic. These are our two main storm systems of interest. That one, and then you got this one. This one is Tropical Storm Humberto. Okay, it's a 40 mile per hour tropical storm, weak system. And then this is Invest 94L, our lead wave, the wave out in front of this one. And this is the one that could become Imelda here in the next few to several days. Both of these systems are very close to one another, and that can mean a lot as we're trying to forecast where these systems could go over the next 5 to 10 days or so. So here's a broad look at everything. We're going to take a zoomed in look at both of these systems here in a second, but just kind of want to show you the bigger picture of everything. Let's continue to move forward. The latest from the National Hurricane Center. This is the actual graphic from these folks. We'll show you another graphic from a site called Zoom Earth here in a second. But this is a 40 mile per hour tropical storm moving west-northwest at 15 miles per hour, so moving at a pretty decent speed. But it's a 1,008 millibar low pressure, not very strong, not a very deep low pressure, but that's because it's a weak tropical storm. And then we got this red X. This is Invest 94L. It has an 80% chance of developing this red area between now and the next 7 days or so. So let's move past this, and it's another way to look at all this. And this is the same cone from the National Hurricane Center. It's just overlaid on a different site, Zoom Earth. And this site is available to you guys, to the public, for free. It's like combining the tropics with Google Maps. It's a phenomenal site to use. I love using it during hurricane season. But like I said, 40 mile per hour tropical storm will likely remain a tropical storm through the weekend, until about the middle portion of the weekend. Then by Saturday afternoon, Humberto is forecast to become a hurricane, a Category 1 storm, and maybe by Sunday afternoon, a Category 2, 105 mile per hour storm. And by sometime Monday afternoon, early next week, this could become a high-end Category 2, and I could see this becoming a Category 3 major hurricane at this point. But the forecast peak intensity as of right at this second, as of around 8 p.m. Eastern Time, is a 110 mile per hour Category 2 storm, and that is Humberto right here. And then if I click this, it has an 80% chance, our wave right here, Invest 94L, to develop in this area right here between now and the next 8 days. I believe it has a 40% chance to develop in the next 48 hours. So pretty decent chance to develop pretty soon. So just another way to look at things here. Now, we're not going to spend much more time on this. I know a lot of people just want to see model guidance, but here's a closer look at Tropical Storm Humberto. And it's being affected by shear from an upper low right now, upper level, and actually an upper trough here in the western Atlantic. So the actual center of the storm is probably right into here, I would say, somewhere into here, probably spinning around the low-level circulation, which this system does have. But a lot of the convection is displaced to the eastern side of the system, and that is because there's some shear impacting the western side of the system. This is kind of cutting off any convection on the western side of this weak tropical storm right now. But there's a closer look at it. It looks like your classic just weak tropical storm, right? I mean, nothing too special about it. Now we look at Invest 94L. Now you're probably thinking, well, this system is probably right down here. This is pretty south. This is way in the Eastern Caribbean. Well, I would agree with you. I would say that most of its convection is tucked into the Eastern Caribbean, but the actual center, if there is one, of this tropical wave is actually, I would say, more so probably right into here somewhere. There's a little bit of a mid-level spin into here, but there's no defined low-level circulation with this tropical wave, with this invest right now. And most of the convection is displaced to the south. And anytime I say convection, I'm meaning shower and storm activity. And this is indicated by the explosive colors you see on your screen. This indicates colder cloud tops, which means we have taller updrafts, deeper convection. So just a closer look at both of these systems. Now, what everybody wants to see is model guides. I'm going to start off by showing you guys the 12Z Euro, and then I want to show you guys what we now have is the 18Z, the evening Euro, which just dropped. So we have fresh, brand new information for you folks, which I'm excited about that. So we're going to start all model info out for Friday morning. So if I do forget to mention the day of the week, I mean, just look up here. FRI stands for Friday, September 26th. So this is where Humberto should be, right about right here. And this is where Invest 94L should be right here. So we continue to move forward here. Now we know that. And we get into Saturday morning. This could become a hurricane. The Euro says this should be a 986 millibar low storm, which would make it a Category 1, maybe Category 2 hurricane. We have a 1,008 millibar low right here, chilling kind of around the Bahamas or just outside the Turks Caicos Islands. And we continue to move forward here, and we get into Sunday morning. Okay, at this point, we have a pretty strong hurricane with Humberto. We still have a weaker low pressure here, but it looks like it's organizing. 1,006 millibar low. We could have a tropical storm kind of hanging out here in the Bahamas Sunday morning, September the 28th. 977 millibar low being modeled by the 12Z Euro. That would make Humberto a Category 2 hurricane, maybe a Category 3. And then we continue to move into, say, Monday morning. 957 from Humberto, that would definitely be a major hurricane. Bermuda's this speck right here. Of course, you got the southeast here, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. And for whatever reason, model guidance continues to lose the L, so we don't actually know how strong this is, but this is definitely a tropical storm right here, really close to a major hurricane. You normally don't see this type of stuff. Okay, they're very close to one another. And then we get into Tuesday morning, and yes, we've been talking about that word, Fujiwara. All right, basically the flow around this, what would be a strong to major hurricane, will affect the steering currents of the weaker system. The dominant storm could. And we'll talk more about that here in a second. I don't want to get too lost in this one, just going over model guides. When we talk about steering currents, we'll speak on that here in a second. Let's just keep this simple for now. But what happens here is Humberto continues to race off to the north next Tuesday morning. And that tropical storm does get close, but it actually gets yanked away. Okay, it gets yanked away by Humberto. And this would be Imelda at this point. Future Imelda, I guess is what you can call it. Okay, so we'll stop it here. This is Wednesday morning. Now, let's take a closer look further up and off the eastern seaboard. Humberto's right here. You think that what would be Imelda, which is October 1st, so we're getting pretty far out. We're almost a week out. Is about to just head on out to sea just like Humberto. But watch what happens here. It kind of detaches itself and hangs out here and actually begins to move back to the west. I'll explain why it does that later in the video. And then it kind of comes back to the eastern seaboard and begins to affect the mid-Atlantic coastline as a hurricane and grinds up the mid-Atlantic northeast coastline. Weird scenario. I mean, you play this out really fast. Once again, I'll go all the way back. I mean, at some point, getting into early next week, it's right here. Now watch what this does. Humberto moves away. Imelda's about to move away too, and then it says, nope, I'm going to come on back. Let's hope that's not the way it plays out, but that just tells you how wacky the steering currents are with this. Now, what about the latest Euro, like the 18Z, which only goes 144 hours out? Watch what this shows. Okay? This is what would be future Imelda. And then Humberto is about to show up on your screen. Okay, so we keep moving here. We got a sub 1,000 millibar low cruising through the Bahamas. This is getting into Sunday morning. So this is a tropical storm, a pretty strong tropical storm, just rolling right through the Bahamas at this point. Okay, and then we get into, this is Monday morning, September the 29th. 9 mid 980s, this could be a Category 1 hurricane. And then you can see Humberto slipping up on the side of your screen here. And then we get into Tuesday morning. You have two major hurricanes just about right next to each other. That is very hard to believe. This is a very hard to believe scenario that could play out. I mean, I think that's the 930s right here. That's a Category 4 or higher hurricane. And this is a 969 millibar hurricane. This is Tuesday morning, right off the southeast coastline. That's South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. They are really close to one another. And this only goes 144 hours out. This is just crazy. And you can see how this begins to get tugged in the final frames back to the east a little bit. It looks like it's heading right towards the North Carolina coastline. Then there's a little tug there. Interesting stuff. What about the GFS? GFS a little bit more cut and dry, right? So we started off Friday morning, same thing. We get into Sunday morning. We got a major hurricane pretty much already Sunday morning from Hurricane Humberto, which is what it would be at this point. We have a tropical storm here. It's just not showing the low pressure, but this is probably a tropical storm, what would be Imelda, going through the Turks, Caicos Islands, the Bahamas. And once again, they're cruising really close to one another. But Humberto kind of gets out in front, and this affects the steering of this system. I know there's no L on this, but this is a tropical system. And this kind of races out in front, gets north fast. Bermuda's like right into here. And this is next Tuesday morning. We got a strong hurricane, 970 millibar low, right between Bermuda and the North Carolina coastline, the Outer Banks. And this tugs on what would be Imelda and whiplashes it north. And they almost combine into one another. But it's just a lot more simpler of a look. It's not simpler, but there's no craziness like with what like the Euro shows, right? You got a tropical storm here this coming Saturday evening, and it's cruising, and then it gets yanked away by the pull, quite literally the yank, by Humberto. Okay? Now, the latest Euro AI model, actually, let's make sure. Yeah, this is the latest Euro AI model, folks. This is starting off Friday morning, Humberto right here, future Imelda right in here. Okay? So we get this in motion. We get into Sunday evening, September the 28th. We got a Category 2-ish hurricane about strength here. We got 1,002 millibar low here. This would be a tropical storm. This would be around a Category 2 hurricane. This is Bermuda. This is the southeast coastline. So what happens here is, this is when it can get kind of crazy. Basically, what is Invest 94L, future Imelda, slips north fast enough to not be influenced by the cyclonic rotation of this storm system. So it gets north, and because it slips north so fast, it doesn't get pulled by this too much. And so therefore, what happens here is you get, and another way to look at it is this. You get a hurricane that ends up making landfall along the Grand Strand. The Carolina coastline is what you call it. And this is for Tuesday morning. And the reason I'm showing you this is because it shows the 988 millibar here. Okay, and you go back here, it doesn't really show it. But that is a Category 1-ish hurricane making landfall on the Carolina coastline next Tuesday morning. Not a forecast. But that is a lot different than the other few models that I just showed you. And that just shows you if this thing can get out in front fast enough, kind of get yanked by a feature I'm about to talk about, which is a cutoff low over the southeast. If it gets pulled north fast enough, then it's not going to be influenced as much by this. We still got a hurricane right here. Okay, this is Humberto. And it still pulls on this. So Humberto begins to race off, kind of avoids Bermuda, and actually tries to yank this basically off, Imelda, as we're getting into the first day of October, back off the Carolina coastline. And then it pulls away from it. And then once future Imelda detaches itself, it actually creates its own path again, and then strengthens back into a tropical storm, and then goes right back into North Carolina again. 10 days from now. And I know some people are thinking, man, this is just crazy model stuff. Listen, the steering currents with this are going to be wacky. And then we look at the latest icon, and I mean, it's crazy too, guys. I mean, we move forward here, and we take this all the way out into this coming Monday afternoon, and we have a major hurricane right here, and then a hurricane right here just off the Florida coastline for Monday afternoon. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but it's possible. Now, I don't have the latest 18Z Euro ensembles, but I do have the 12Z Euro ensembles. 18Z is not ran yet. And let's see if we can get this in motion. So we're going to start this off Saturday. I mean, guys, it's obvious. There's two clear signals. This is Humberto. This is what could be future Imelda. So watch what happens here. Two clear signals, right? And then we get into early next week, and then things get fuzzy. Looks like this thing's going to curve right into here as a strong system. There's many members. Remember, this makes up 51 members. And clearly you can see there's more members. The confidence is higher with Humberto. I mean, it's already a tropical storm. It's already a named storm. The confidence is not as high with future Imelda, potential future Imelda. Okay, but some of the members that do form get strong. But here's a great example of this. And let's move this a little bit forward. Well, let's go right here. Here's a great example of this. You see how these members right here, let's do this. Let's see. You see how these members right here kind of get way out ahead, and then these members down here kind of stay down here? This is that scenario that I showed you on the Euro AI model. The models of some of the scenarios getting this out in front of Humberto where it doesn't get impacted as much. Okay, so we keep going here, and we go about a week out, and some of these do go into the southeast coastline, but not a lot. Humberto just, I don't see much of a scenario where Humberto really hits the east coast. I do see a scenario where it could bring impacts to Bermuda, maybe even make landfall. And listen, I would not rule out what is Invest 94L slipping into the Gulf. I wouldn't rule it out. I'm not going to sit here and rule it out. And then you look at the Google DeepMind Ensemble guidance here. Okay, and you can see what happens here. Clear signal with this one of a strong to major hurricane as we're getting into this coming Monday evening. Clear signal of Invest 94L becoming Imelda right here. Now I want you to watch how you get a connection right in here. And there's a pivot point, literally. A pivot point right into here. So you see Imelda, some of its members, move into the path of Humberto. Okay, but then some of them get far enough north fast enough, get yanked north by this cutoff low we're about to talk about, and then go right into the southeast coastline. A lot of craziness, guys. A lot of craziness. All right, so this is the part of the video that can get confusing. And even as me, as somebody who talks weather, it can get a little bit crazy trying to explain it. So let's talk about intensification first. So let's make sure things are up here. This is Humberto. Okay, the Euro says, and this is the Euro says, by tomorrow afternoon, this is still a weak tropical system, still a tropical storm. All right, and then Invest 94L is probably somewhere into here at this point. Okay, you're going to see an L pop up on your screen here in a couple frames. So I really think in the short term, like in the next 48 hours or so, Humberto is going to continue to remain weak. And you see these kind of slashes of blue here. These are winds at 200 millibars. So 40,000 feet up in the air. Upper wind flow is basically working up against the cyclonic rotation of this system. This creates wind shear. So this system is going to continue to deal with what it's dealing with right now is, basically westerly shear hitting this system. Basically upper flow coming out the west, hitting the western side of this system. So that is why all the convection right now is kind of pushed off to the eastern side of the system, if that makes sense. So what happens here is as we move forward here and we get closer to the weekend, that lessens up. So all of a sudden we get into, say, let's go all the way into Sunday morning. This is like Saturday night, Sunday morning. All of a sudden we have an expansive outflow of this system. So you can see how that number goes from 1,006 millibars to the 970s. The more that number drops, the stronger the low pressure. And all of a sudden you have a huge outflow of this system, and you can call it an upper level anticyclone, ULAC for short, whatever you want to call it. But basically this thing is living and breathing its best life as air is basically being dispersed out away from the system. That's allowing for more air to rise. That's getting dispersed out. This rising air allows for the firing of shower and storm activity. Shower and storm activity aids to a moist environment. Tropical systems like moist air. They don't like dry air. So that's why this system really takes off. The upper levels of the atmosphere begins to disperse air aloft. Okay, so that's why the ceiling is very high with this system, and that's why the forecast intensity is already a high-end Category 2 hurricane. Confidence is pretty high on that. Now, you see our other system, which could be future Imelda, right here. Okay, now there's a couple things working against this rapidly intensifying, and that is because you have some flow diving down right into here, kind of hitting this system. And I think this will kind of prevent this from maybe strengthening too much. But as we move forward here, you really have a hard time even seeing this because on this particular run, it's not very strong. And it's not really the best example of it. Here it is, maybe a little bit better right here. And as we move forward here, you see right here some flow working up against this system, but there's also air being dispersed out away from the system like this also. Just don't know if the conditions are the best on the western side of the system right here for, rapid intensification with what is now Invest 94, or what could be Imelda here in the next few days. But the environment looks great for Humberto. We just got to watch this. But there will be a dispersion. You got to watch this. You see how in the upper levels, you see these arrowheads embedded in these lines are kind of going up like this. When you see that, you got to watch out for a flooding threat. And we'll speak more on that when we know more. But the kind of take from this, Humberto looks to have the stage set for maybe even a period of rapid intensification. The strengthening of what is 94L right now, we just got to watch. I think it's going to have more working against it, especially with a solid westerly flow from this area working against it right here. We just got to watch it. It's a little bit more complex to figure out. But steering currents, okay, this is where it can get wacky. So let's slow it down here before we wrap up this video. All right, so this area right here, this is high pressure. So the warmer colors on the screen, the orange, right? And then we got three other areas of low pressure right here, and right here. Okay, this is Humberto, and this is for this coming Saturday. This is what could be at this point Imelda, but could still just be an Invest. And this right here is a cutoff low, kind of a low pressure trapped underneath high pressure, which is kind of up here. Okay, now the flow around this cutoff low is going to go like this. Okay, the flow around this high pressure, the bottom flank of it is going to go like this. Okay, the actual cyclonic flow of these two low pressures, future Imelda and Humberto, is like this. Just don't mean a whole lot right now, but it could as we get deeper into this explanation. So we get all that off your screen. The flow around the bottom edge of this is kind of what's steering Humberto. Now what's steering this? It's lighter steering currents, but it could already be starting to feel the tug of the flow around this cutoff low, and it's probably feeling the tug of the bottom edge of this ridge of high pressure. Okay, so that's why a lot of model guidance has this slipping over the next few days after this, kind of up into here or up into here, because you have two flows in the upper levels of the atmosphere working in tandem. So as we move forward here, that's why this little blue blob right here, which could be future Imelda, is slipping to the north. Humberto is being carried at the bottom edge of this ridge. Remember, just keep in mind the flow is going just like this. Okay. Now also remember that Humberto at this point, as we're getting into Sunday, is a strong to major hurricane. A stronger low pressure is always going to want to fight even up against high pressure to gain latitude. It's going to find any weakness it can. It's just going to try to get further north. Okay, so this is still trying to find this weakness here too. So as we move forward here, we're going to go on and flip it to this. No, that's wrong. We're going to flip it to this. Let's back it up a little bit. So we get right here. This is getting into Tuesday morning. Okay, at this point, this would be Imelda. This would be Humberto. Okay, so Imelda doesn't get north fast enough, so therefore it gets kind of behind, if you will, Humberto. So the flow around Humberto is going just like this. Okay, so this is going to try to yank this almost like this because this is the dominant low pressure. This is the weaker low pressure. So the cyclonic flow of this could actually yank this. There could be some sort of pivot point like right into here. It's almost like they're pinballing around each other. And it could actually yank this and pull it away. And that's what happens on this particular run of the Euro. And Humberto finds a wide open weakness up here created by a trough that digs down and kind of breaks this ridge, and this ridge kind of shifts over. So this is going to begin to head this way and try to pull this with it. Okay, so you keep this in motion, and it's pulling it with it, and then it detaches. See how it detaches right there? And then remember, the flow around this high pressure is going like this. So when it detaches on this particular crazy run of the Euro, I might add, all of a sudden the flow around the bottom edge of this ridge takes over, and it begins to take this back this way. So that's why you have the crazy run that you do on this afternoon's Euro, and it does all that. I hope that makes sense. Now, kind of what happens on, say, the Euro AI model. Okay, what happens here is what would be Imelda gets north fast. Okay, it jets north fast enough, and it's moving. I don't think, no, that's not the right one. I'm sorry, guys. Not going to always be perfect with these. Here it is. See what's happening right here as we're getting into Monday afternoon? Imelda is way out ahead of Humberto. And Humberto. I've had to say that name about 1,000,000 times in this video so far, and I'm probably not saying it the exact way you're supposed to, but it's actually pronounced with no H, Humberto, per the chart from the National Hurricane Center. Anyways, Imelda gets way out in front of Humberto and doesn't feel the flow of it in time to basically help. Imelda does not feel the tug of Humberto fast enough to avoid not going to the Carolina coastline, and instead it does. And finally, Humberto gets close enough and tries to pull it away, but the damage is already done, and it detaches just like the Euro, and then it begins to re-strengthen again and go right back into the Carolina coastline. Okay? I hope that makes sense, guys. And I'll be honest, since doing weather YouTube, this could be a first for me explaining it. If you've been tuning in for any length of time, breaking down the tropics, you know that I love nerding out with this stuff. But as far as two tropical systems being this close to one another, it's going to be wild tracking this and trying to get better and better with explaining it over time. But literally, Humberto could actually, and I could see it being a likely scenario, could actually save us from Imelda on down the road from hitting and affecting the eastern seaboard. But as you can tell with the latest Euro and the latest Euro AI model, if what is 94L future Imelda gets out ahead too fast, it's not going to feel the yank of Humberto in time to avoid making landfall. That pretty much sums all that up. Hope that makes sense. God bless all y'all. We'll do it all again tomorrow morning. And yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. God